Welcome to Truth Talks. Today, I am going to do a monologue on pedophilia. And I'm actually reading from an interview, a script of an interview that was done prior to 2017. Now, I just received this script last week, and I'm like, whoa, people, parents, grandparents, you need to hear this interview. And I've just pulled off, of course, I can't do the entire interview here, read the whole thing, but I pulled out the highlights for you so that you will begin to get a better understanding. And it really, really shows what I've been saying for many, many years about the corruption in academia and the push toward pedophilia. So this is an interview that Mark Blasius from Princeton University did with Kate Millett. And so Kate Millett is a radical feminist writer. She's best known for her book from 1970 called Sexual Politics. So listen as I go through some of the comments. His comments, Mark's questions, and then Kate's comments. Because if this does not wake you up to an understanding of what is going on in our society and particularly in our education system, then I don't think anything will. So let's begin. So the first question that Mark Blasius asked is, how would you envision a sexually free society? Do you think, so this is multiple questions in one little bit, do you think any limitations should be placed on a sexual revolution? And the third part of this is, what role would cross-generational sex play in a sexual revolution? So there you go, 3 questions. How would you envision a sexually free society? What does that mean? Do you think there should be any limitations placed on a sexual revolution? And what role, because this is really where the sexual revolution is heading, what role does cross-generational sex play in sexual revolution? What he's asking here is, what role does sex with children play? When he's talking cross-generation, he's talking about sex between adults and children. So these are the first questions that he asks of Kate. And this is her response. Part of the patriarchal family structure involves the control of the sex life of children. Now, you've all heard, and many of you have thought, oh, the patriarchal structure of our society is so horrible. We have to bring it down. We have to collapse it. We have to get rid of it. But let's have another look at this. Listen to what she's saying. Part of the patriarchal family structure, which means, here's the patriarchal family structure: husband, wife, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles. That is now the patriarchal family structure. And of course, that has to be eliminated by radical feminism and a progressive and activist pedophilic agenda. This is really, really important for you to understand. So, and she said, children have virtually no rights guaranteed by law in our society. Well, you know what? That's absolutely a lie. Children have the right to be protected, and it is the parents' role and responsibility to protect their children. And I would say that protecting them from a sex life with adults is our main responsibility. We want to protect them from getting hit on the road. We want to protect them in the schoolyard. We want to protect them, everywhere. But what we need to be doing is protecting them from this radical sexualization that would put them in the crosshairs of pedophiles, adults who want to have sex with children. So then she goes on to say this: certainly one of children's essential rights is to express themselves sexually, probably primarily with each other, but with adults as well. Take a breath. I'm going to read it again, because actually Exclaim magazine in 2017, I think. I put this in my book, Closing the Floodgates. If you go to that book, it's all spelled out anyways, but this is really, really spelling it out in a really big way. I didn't have this interview in my hand when I wrote Closing the Floodgates. I wish I had it. So I'm going to read it again. Certainly one of the children's essential rights. So it should be an essential right of children to express themselves sexually, probably primarily with each other, but also with adults. And what are we doing in our public school system? We are encouraging, we are teaching children to express themselves sexually from JK onward. It's part of a radical sexual indoctrination of your children. And that's why I have been saying for years, get your children out of the public school system. Nevertheless, it hits every area of our society. And so you have to be careful with what they're watching on television. Oh my goodness. I was watching a show the other night, and I don't watch a lot of television. Actually, it was on another program. And it was, one of those SWAT things. I kind of like to watch those. And don't they have now, they want to sexualize everything. So one of the team members is a lesbian. And, they don't go into a lot of that. All right, well, that happens. But do we have to talk about people's sex lives? Apparently, yes, because now she's been invited to be part of a threesome. This is polyamory. This is, and I'm like, oh, I am so angry in my spirit at what is being proposed and what is being explored as normalcy. Because that's the idea that this is normal behavior. Anyways, I could go on there. I'm not going to. So the essential right is that children get to express themselves sexually. There are no age limits here. You may notice that. She's not talking about, 18 and over. She's talking about children. And then she says, so sexual freedom of children is an important part of a sexual revolution. Okay. It's an important part of her sexual revolution. We as parents need to stop it. We need to stop this sexual revolution in its tracks. But this has been going on for decades. Remember, I've talked about this before. This is a strategy actually very embedded by LGBTQ activists. And people don't like me talking about the LGBTQ this way, but hello, it's not primarily embedded in heterosexual or family structure because we don't want people touching our kids. So Blasius then asked this, do you think, and of course he's very pro sexualizing of children, obviously because of his questions, do you think that a tender, loving, erotic relationship can exist between a boy and a male, a boy and a man? Do you think that a tender, loving, erotic relationship can exist? So what he's asking is it number one, is it acceptable for men to have sex with boys, young boys? And then that it can become this beautiful, loving, tender, caring relationship. And then he asks, he goes on to ask other questions, but this is her response. Of course. Or between a female child and an older woman. Of course, adult men should be raping our young boys. This is all about language, folks. It's about minimizing the extremes. Same as the whole idea of sexual abuse. We don't even understand what sexual abuse really means anymore, because it could be anything from a touch on the arm that seems to be erotic to out-and-out sodomy or rape. And we need to put this in perspective. Tender, loving, erotic relationship. He's talking about man-boy sex. That's been promoted on the outskirts of the LGBTQ movement since the 60s. It was promoted in a group called NAMBLA, which subsequently folded because of legal investigation, and it was a man-boy love association. It may have folded, but it just went further underground. There are lots of groups that give a check mark to man-boy love. And then Millett, says, of course, or between a female child and an older woman. This is sexual abuse of children. This is proclaiming it is a good thing to have sex with children. These are academics that are discussing this horrendous topic, and not in the way that we would have ever expected decades ago. This would decades ago been something that would have been so atrocious that these people would have been on a police watch list. But not now. Not now, and not in academia. So then Blasius goes on to ask, don't you think that age of consent laws are barriers to exploring possibilities for non-exploitive cross-generational relationships and serve to further deny the right of youths to sexual expression? I think every question just gets worse. It is so loaded, so full of bias, so full of bigotry, so full of the rights and of pedophilic adults, and so lacking of the care of children. But that started with Kinsey. Remember back in 1949, I've talked about him before. So he says, don't you think the age of consent laws are barriers? Well, yes, they are. They're put there as barriers to adults. They're supposed to be thick walls for adults so that they won't offend our children. They won't brutalize our children. They won't sexualize our children. Non-explosive, what's a non-exploitive cross-generational relationship? Non-exploitive, there is no such thing when it comes to sexual interference with children. There are no non-exploitive sexual cross-generational relationships with children. It's called incest. And I can talk liberally about this, and I can talk from a very personal experience when it comes to my own family life. Go to my book, Damaged by the Predators Among Us. Read it, and you find out some of the horrific results of incest and bringing other men into the home to rape my boys. Like, this is what they are talking about. It's okay. It's okay. There's lots of ways that we can get around this, is what they're saying. But the most important is that we have to do away with age of consent laws, and that those laws just simply deny the rights of youth to actually have a sexual expression. Youth. What age are youth? These are minors he's talking about. These are minors. Parents, you've got to get the scales off your eyes. You've got to begin to listen to what is being promoted in our universities, and now what the next generation of graduates are actually indoctrinated in. They believe this stuff. It's taught to them. Gender studies teaches sexual exploitation of children. There you have it. Let me keep going. Millett also says, those laws were originally meant to protect children from exploitation. That's true. But the right to child sexuality is not being approached initially as a right of children to express themselves with each other. Sorry. If I caught my children expressing themselves sexually with their sibling, I'm not going to go, oh, good for you. I'm going to take that child aside and say, what do you think you're doing? This is not appropriate. This is not what is happening in our household. You're exploiting your sibling. Like, what parent wants incest happening in their home? What normal parent, what heterosexual parent, because let's face it, if this is being promoted within LGBTQ activism, what does that mean? But, I don't think that children should have the right to express themselves sexually with one another, either in the home or in the classroom or on the class playground. And that is exactly what's happening in our public schools because it's being encouraged. So Blasius asked another question. Well, that's probably because children or youths don't have a political voice. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's a reason they don't have a political voice. They're children. They need to be children. They don't need the responsibility of having a voice in a political sphere. They need to be children, and they need to be protected. Then he says, but most gay male youth groups seem to support the lowering or abolition of age of consent as a first step. Okay, let me speak to my LGBTQ friends who are still in the community but have blinders on. Or maybe they're not in the community. Maybe they're same-sex attracted and they're married heterosexually. I don't know, but you better wake up to what is being promoted within the community. He's saying most gay male youth groups seem to support the lowering or abolition of the age of consent. They want it removed. They want it removed. Why do they want it removed? Male youth groups, gay male youth groups, so that adults can have sex with adolescents and children. And then he says, how prevalent are erotic relationships between women and girls, do you think? Well, she has an interesting comment here. I think it's really, it explains a whole lot. She says, in general, women are given more freedom than men with patriarchy to love across generations. So she brings this whole patriarchy thing. I'm so tired of hearing about patriarchal societies. Honestly, we need to take a step back and go, what worked in society? I'm not talking about men lording it over women. I'm talking about a relationship between a husband and wife. And if you want to call that patriarchal, go ahead. Because it worked and it was in the best interest of our children. And not only that, it was a place where love could grow. Certainly there were some marriages that were not good. There was abuse in some marriages. I've been in one like that in the past. I also know what it's like to be in a fabulous marriage. And I'm going to tell you that abuse that happened in my first marriage was by a homosexual pedophile. Did I know he was homosexual when I married him? No. So let me go back to this. So she's saying women generally have more freedom to have sex with children, female children. But she says, I don't see the correlative man-boy relationship existing in the lesbian culture. Well, that's because women tend to be very protective of their children, and so there's not the same kind of exploitation, within the lesbian culture. And even if they aren't mothers themselves, and many, of course, are not, they don't want children, there's still generally, there's something in their heart to protect the children. So she doesn't see the same kind of women-girl love as she sees man-boy love in the homosexual community. She says that cross-generational sexual relationships are more of a topic within the male homosexual movement than the female homosexual movement. Makes sense. And women in the movement, so women, homosexuals, lesbians, bisexual, women in the LGBT movement often condemn those who would be open to child abuse and rape. As women, then she says, as women, we've experienced a great deal of sexual repression. Oh, yeah. This is, 2017, Millett actually died. So this is prior to that. But you know what? Sexual repression, what does that mean? That you can go out and do whatever you want? Well, that's been happening since the 60s, so I don't know what planet this lady is from. But she is an ultra-feminist, and she has some bones to pick with men, obviously. And, you know, I think we live in a culture where women can do whatever they want. And, you know, I talked about that earlier. Doing whatever you want doesn't mean it's in the best interest of either you or your partner, and definitely not of your children. Anyways, let me continue. She says, have you ever thought about incest as an issue? I'm really getting tongue-tied. About incest as an issue too. So she's asking the interviewer, Mark Blasius, have you thought about incest? She says, I've wondered about the power of incest taboo. Okay, let me break this down. The power of incest taboo. That means the power of saying that incest is an abomination to children. But here it is, the power of incest taboo. Let's sweeten this. Let's make it normal. She says, as child and adolescent, sexuality reaches out to greater and greater freedoms. I think I'm getting a headache, folks. As child and adult, sexuality reaches out to greater and greater freedoms. So incest, pedophilia reaches into greater freedoms because they're bringing it to your home. The proximity of family members makes one experiment and challenge this taboo. So if you're in a family, because you have children in your family, that makes you want to experiment and challenge the taboo. Only if you're not in your right mind. I'm so tired of this, and because of my own experience, I just want to throw the doors open and say, people, pay attention. Pay attention, pay attention. And when that video came out from California, it was for the Pride season or whatever, before the Pride season last year, that said, we're coming for your children, we're coming for your children. This is what they're talking about. It was a bunch of gay men singing in a choir, we're coming for your children. Are you paying attention yet? Parents, you must rise up against this insidious agenda to take your children into places that will leave them crippled emotionally, physically even, spiritually for life. Sexual abuse creates complex trauma. It affects the child for their entire life. You can put icing on this all you like, but it will never sweeten the reality of what's happening to your children. So she says the proximity of family members makes one experiment and challenge this taboo. No way it doesn't. Corruption makes an individual challenge this taboo and want to have sex with their children. Corruption with my first husband. He was corrupt to the core. And I don't hate him for being homosexual, but where hate started to come in, and I have to check my heart all the time, was when he and his boyfriends violated our children. That's corruption. That is the epitome of evil. And these people are saying it's a good thing. The incest taboo has always been one, get this, so I want you to listen to this, one of the cornerstones of patriarchal thought. All right, let's go back to patriarchies. Let's go back because it was right thinking. If the incest taboo has always been one of the cornerstones of patriarchy, then we need to go back to that because we need to stand firmly to protect our children from this insidious agenda. And then she ends with this. What's really at issue is children's rights. No, what's at issue here is allowing sick-minded individuals access to our children. Blasius goes on to ask, But shouldn't one of the rights of children be that of choosing to have an erotic relationship with an older person? You see how it's all woven in to rights. You know, our human rights. Children have a human right to have sex with an older person. I want to tell you that children do not think about having sex with someone. Children are children. They don't think along those lines unless they are taught to think along those lines. And educationally, that is what is happening in your public school system. They are being educated to think sexually on all levels. And now we want to help them to choose to have an erotic relationship with an adult. Pedophilia exposed. This is what they want. Change the minds of your children, sexualize their brains, because you put in what you're putting in. Children are like sponges, right? So what you're putting in is creating new neural pathways, sexual pathways in their brain, things to explore that they never naturally or normally would have ever thought about. But that's what's happening in our education system. We are exposing them to a sexual agenda that is horrific. And why? Why are we doing that? Why are teachers being ordered to do this? And some teachers are more than willing. Because it serves the purpose of pedophiles. So Blasius asked this question: shouldn't children be able to choose an erotic relationship with adults? And she says, Kate Millett, oh, sure, part of a free society would be that you could choose whomever you fancied. Okay, so he's talking about children choosing, but really what she's talking about is adults choosing whoever they fancy. Children don't choose to be raped, folks. Children do not choose sexual relationships on a normal kind of childhood basis. That's not what they do. Only if they have been sexualized. And as a trauma therapist, I've seen what's happened to young children. I treated adults who had survived chronic sexual abuse. And you know what? It became a way of living for them, a way of not being harmed. And for my own children, it kept them from either being killed or me being killed, because they were threatened that if they told anybody. And my son, one son talks about this, that kind of relationship with his biological father and then other men became, with his biological father, he says that it was the only way he grew up knowing what love was from his father. That's what he thought love was. Isn't that the saddest thing? That we equate love with child rape. And for him, it started when he was 4 months old. There's so much that needs to be exposed. Yeah, so Millett believes that we should be able to have sex with whomever we want, anytime, any place, any age. And then Blasius asks another question. It strikes me that there's a contradiction in supporting children's liberation. Well, I don't support children's liberation. I support, and most parents would agree with me, protection of children. But contradiction in supporting children's liberation while maintaining paternalistic age of consent laws. Here we are back to the age of consent. Let's get rid of them all. So when you hear our politicians wanting to drop age of consent laws, like our Prime Minister in Canada has done, and that he's dropped the sodomy law, yeah, this is what it's all about. He says that if we are about children's liberation, we can't maintain age of consent laws, and he calls them paternalistic. Oh my goodness. And the stigmatizing of adults who have erotic relationship with people. So what's he saying again? That we should not stigmatize. We should not, have any kind of critical analogy or critical opinion of someone who has sex with children. We should pat them on the back. we should tell them, oh, good for you. That's what he's saying. And then Millett then answers with this: if you can't change the social condition of children, you still have an inescapable inequality. Oh my goodness. Haven't we been just had this pushed down our throat about inclusion, diversity, and equity? We are having that pushed down our throat to push through an agenda that sexualizes our children in the name of inequality and children's rights. I can see, she says, how gay youth groups would be very interested in abolishing age of consent laws. She's already talked about this, because it must be very oppressive for them. Oh my goodness, I don't think I have anything to say. And this is mainly, because she goes on, this has mainly been an issue for older men rather than gay youth. Of course it has. They're upset that they can't have access to our children anytime, any place, anywhere. Well, I would just hopefully want to be on the front lines of making them more upset. I want to say, keep it in your pants. Leave our kids alone. Leave our kids alone. You're not coming after our children. Parents, wake up. Millett continues by saying, boy lovers are directly and acutely cognizant of the social and economic conditions which crush kids. What the heck's she talking about? I'm not even going to go with it. What's our freedom about? It's about the liberation of children. Is it about the liberation of children or just about having sex with them? Well, I think she's looking for both. Liberation of children from what? From whom? She wants to separate children from their parents. And haven't we seen that in the last several years with the deconstruction of family and pitting children against their parents from the education system, keeping secrets? Don't tell the parents. You know, if you're gender confused, don't talk to your parents. Don't talk to your parents. Don't talk to your parents. Teachers refusing to give information to parents. Yeah. All about liberation of children? No, it's about having sex with them. And then Millett says, I would like to see a broader movement involving young people who will be making decisions because it's their issue and their fight, and theirs is the authentic voice. So she wants children who have been sexually abused in young childhood to then become the voices for promoting pedophilia in the next generation. I'm just going to say to you today that this video that I'm making is one that I wish will wake up parents all over Canada, the US, and around the world to the actual insidious agenda, to the actual academic progressive teaching that leads to pedophilia and the endorsement of that within our mental health associations and in other professional associations. We must stand together. We must link arms for our children and say no more. Leave our kids alone. Thank you for watching today. And I know this has really been a heavy show, but I just want to make you aware of what is out there and the great need to protect your child, not only while they're in your home, but protect them from a very nefarious education system that seeks to impress upon them the need, even in childhood, for sexual expression and the opportunity to express themselves with adults. Let's stop this right in the tracks that it's on. Let's derail this train. Thanks for watching.
You've been listening to Truth Talks with Dr. Ann. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can find Ann's books, blog, and sign up for the newsletter by going to restoringthemosaic.ca.